Here's a look at a recap of your markets on this Monday, the 8th day of September. Back to a full week of business this week following the shortened holiday week last week. Most all the auction barns around the state that I've seen any early listings for so far, expecting to have pretty big auctions this week. The markets did start off the week mostly on a positive note around. Taking a look at our two tracking measures, the CME Feeder Cattle Index, based roughly on an 800-pound steer through the auction barn up through the 12-state feeding region, an all-time new record high, once again, 367.03. The Missouri Stocker formula, of course, receipts in that very light as many of the barns did not have sales last week. All the same, it's still setting at a record high as well for 36.83. And that's based roughly on a 550-pound steer through the auction barns in the state of Missouri. Taking a look, before we get into the markets, at the Missouri Crop Progress Report that was released just about an hour ago. For the week ending September 7th, there was 6.6 days suitable for field work in the state. Top soil moisture currently rated at 13%, very short, 47% short, 40% adequate, and 0% surplus now. Subsoil moisture, those ratings declined slightly this week as well. 6% very short, 40% short, 60% adequate, and 0% surplus. Corn in the dough stage reached 99%. That compares pretty much even with the 5-year average of 97. Corn dented is at 88%. Again, awful close to the 5-year average of 90%. Corn matures at 50%. That's about 10% ahead of the 5-year average. Corn harvested showed up on this week's report, currently at 9% complete. That compares to the 5-year average of 5%. Corn condition was rated at 1% very poor, 4% poor, 17% fair, 61% good, and 17% excellent. Soybeans setting pods reached 93%, almost even with the 5-year average of 92%. Soybeans dropping leaves at 16%. That's slightly ahead of the 5-year average of 10%. Soybean conditions, 1% very poor, 8% poor, 26% fair, 59% good, and 6% excellent. Lack of rain has caused pasture conditions to deteriorate slightly this week. 3% of the state is rated at very poor, 13% poor, 30% fair, 52% good, and 2% excellent. Taking a look at what's going on at the auction barns around the state today, China livestock auction, that sale's still going on. They were expecting to have about 700 head today. A few stick-out sales we seen there at China today included 33 head of 678-pound steers at $418.25. A couple loads of heifers that stuck out today, 72 head of 657-pound heifers at $393. Another load of 728-pound heifers in China, $378. Callaway Livestock Center, they're expecting to have about 2,200 head today. Few stick-out sales there included a full load of 601-pound steers at $458, a load of 821-pound steers at $362.75, and a load of 966-pound steers at Callaway, $328.25. Joplin Regional Stockyards are expecting to have 13,500 head today. They got started real early this morning at 4:30. As of the recording of this report, shortly before 4 o'clock, or just slightly over about 2/3 of the way done, it looks like. Taking a look at the way the cattle are selling there in Joplin. Of course, we got to go back to 2 weeks ago as they were closed last week. But compared to 2 weeks ago, the steers under 450 pounds selling 5 to 10 lower, heavier weight steers steady to 10 higher. The heifers very uneven from 10 lower to 12 higher. The steers in Joplin, medium and large ones, 4 to 5 weights at 460 to 520, 5 to 6 weights at 416 to 472, 6 to 7 weights 385 to 435, 7 to 8 weight steers at 361 to 405, 8 to 9 weights at 346 to 370, 900 to 1,000 pound steers at 318 to 357.50. The feeder heifers in Joplin, medium and large ones, some 4 to 5 weights at 395 to 465, 5 to 6 weights at $377 to $455. 6 to 7 weight heifers at $350 to $395. Some 7 to 8 weights at $337 to $358. Some 8 to 9 weight heifers at $323 to $331. Taking a look at the closing futures on the Mercantile Exchange. Live cattle for October 17 cents lower at $235.80. The rest of the contracts all higher. December up 12 at $237.57. February $239.22 up 55. Feeder cattle September up $1.12, $360.95. October $359.17 up $127. November $358.12 up $197. Lean hogs for October 87 cents lower for the day, $95.15. December, $88.15, down 17, and February, $90.67, up 30. Turning our attention to the grain markets, most all of the grain contracts, as well as the cash bids, closed positive today. Of course, on Friday, we have that USDA crop production. We'll wait to see what the numbers come out there. Of course, many people expecting the estimated yields, especially for the corn, to drop this month, but time will tell whether or not those official numbers are adjusted on Friday or not. At the elevators around the state today, soybeans 6 cents higher, wheat 2 to 4 higher, corn 3 to 4 higher. Corn bids at the elevators in the St. Louis region, $413 to $414, Kansas City at $398. Soybean bids, St. Louis, $10.05 to $10.06, Kansas City, $9.48. Wheat bids in St. Louis, $463 to $471. On the Board of Trade, corn for September, 4 cents higher for the day, $4.03. December, $421 3/4, up 3 3/4. March at $439 1/2, up 3. Soybeans September 1013 1/2, up 7. November new crop beans at 1033 3/4, up 6 3/4. And January 1052 3/4, up 7 1/4. September wheat up 4 1/2 at 505 1/2. December 523 3/4, up 4 1/2. March at 541 1/4, up 5 1/2. Soybean meal for September up $4.20 a ton, closing the day at $284.70. Soybean oil, the September contract up 17 cents at $50.73. With the Missouri Department of Agriculture, that's a recap of your markets for Monday. This is Tony Hancock.